Hello everyone. Today I'm going to show you how we can build an A/B testing service with Amazon CloudWatch evidently in 45 minutes. I will be taking you through every step that you have to follow to build that A/B testing service using evidently. CloudWatch evidently is a new AWS service which lets application developers conduct experiments and identify unintended consequences of a new feature before rolling them out for general use, thereby reducing risk related to new feature rollout. At the same time, evidently allows you to validate new features across the full application stack before release, and you can use A/B testing and experimentation to decide if the new feature that you're launching is going to help you achieve your goals. Now, your goals can be to increase the conversion rate or to increase the retention on your application. So when you're looking for time spent on your application, like every application is struggling to capture the attention span of their audience. Like on YouTube wants you to spend more time with them. Similarly, Twitter and now X wants you to spend more time with them. So you can have different goals based on your needs and requirements. So you can design your experiments to increase that goal for you. So today we are going to show you how you can build a simple experimentation service using CloudWatch evidently. Now I'm going to show you from the console how you can create that project and how that service will be used for experimentation. So today the goal is to show you a very basic setup, but you can use it to enhance your capabilities and you can build complex experimentations as well. So the first step, you will be going into the AWS console. In the console, you will have the CloudWatch. I'm sure you would have seen that console many times. Evidently, is one of the new feature that they have launched or new service under CloudWatch that is available to you. So evidently, that's what you have to identify. So in evidently, you will have an option creating projects. So I have already created a project, but you don't have to use that one. I'm going to show you how to start a new project. So let's see a new project. You can click on this create button. You can name your project. So I'm calling it simple A/B test. You don't have to provide the details, that's optional. Now comes the evaluation event storage. So you can decide not to store your evaluation events, or you can store in the CloudWatch logs S3 bucket, whichever is applicable for you. Now I'm choosing CloudWatch logs because that is something I can use it for other observation or monitoring of the application. I can use it for observability or monitoring of the application. You have an option that says default name for new log group. So you can create a new one, or you can use the existing log group from CloudWatch logs. I'm going to create a new one because this is a new application for me, and this allows me to ensure that there is a clear grouping for this particular project. So I'm going to create this new log group. The name should be the project name. I am not going to use client-side evaluation, even though this supports the client-side evaluation. What that means, you can run an experiment without having a server-side logic for this. And this evaluation logic basically tells you which experiment you should be displaying for a given user. So like in person, I always recommend going for server-side evaluation. The reason behind this, when you keep your client-side lightweight, in that case, you can serve the content really fast. And what that means, you are able to reduce your page speed. And if you search why page speed is important, you will realize that Google or different companies, they help you show, like, if you think about your organic search result score or SERP, that goes hands in hand with page speed. Better page speed means that all these websites where you are going to include the link for your web application or your mobile app will prefer the link because that loads faster. So your users are going to stay longer with you. So there is a direct relationship between page speed and user experience. If you have faster page speed, that means better customer experience, and they will stay with you for a long time. So this is the reason we are not choosing the client-side evaluation. Now just click on this button that says create project. You can see that this new project is created. Now you click on this project name and then you can go in there. So when you see, you will see different options. This is a simple guide that tells you what you should be doing next now. So you have created the project, and now you can choose to create the new feature. So I'm going to add new feature. So this is the guide that tells you. Then feature name, you can be like my home page banner. So what that means, I'm trying to create a new experiment where I will be showing banner image 1 to a set of users and banner image 2 to other set of the users to decide which banner will work for my website. That is the experiment that I'm going for. So now you can create this. This is a simple name. You can have a descriptive name that helps you identify the feature that you're testing. So this is the project. This is the feature that we're testing, basically a homepage banner. So I'm testing a homepage banner. So let's reduce this so that way in the future, if you want to run a new version, so you can have the naming convention. So I'm not thinking about the naming convention for the time being. I'm just showing you the features. And in there, then we have the feature variations that you can do. So feature variations, basically what it does, you can have multiple variations of the feature that you're testing, and this is where we call that experiment A, B, C. So you can have up to 5 variations per feature. So you can test 5 different variations of a feature at a given time. And these are the data types that support. So basically, this is the kind of the information you will be seeing after the evaluation. So when you will be making an evaluation, as a result, it will tell you that, okay, this is the feature variation that is selected. So this can be a Boolean value, a long value. Boolean value is mostly used for the feature flags, where you want to either display a feature or hide a feature. So it's kind of used when you're launching a new, let's say, new experiment or new feature on your website. This is where the feature flags comes in. But today I'm going to use a string. So a string, because I will be calling this like experiment 1, or and I will come back to this value. So, and similarly for experiment. In here, you can use any value. So for the time being, I will be using a public image URL, that the banner image that we are testing in here. So banner image A1, banner image 2, these 2 images that I will be using. And I will be setting, I will be setting a default from there. So you can see the default. For the first time, if nothing goes, like nothing matches the rule that we will be setting in, the default experiment will be visible to them. And after that, what it does, it automatically generates a sample code for you. This tells you the code that you can directly use on your server-side application. So what that means, you can take this code and deploy this in your Lambda function or whichever server-side code that you want to evaluate. For this demo, as I said, my channel is the kind of dedicated for everything AWS, so I will help you build with AWS. So build with AWS, that is my motto. So we are going to build with AWS, so I will be recommending AWS Lambda function, and in the Lambda function, you can reuse different programming languages. So I prefer Python because that's lightweight compared to the other languages, but that's my personal preference. This can be different for you, so you can choose the language that you want to take. So in here, I will be using this code, and this is the code that I will be using in the Lambda function. So I'm going to copy this, so that way this becomes easier. Entity ID is basically what I will be using for my user ID. So the user ID basically just tells you that for user ID, please give me the variation that I should be displaying for this project and for this feature. And this shows you as a response that you will be getting from this experiment. So the default is experiment A. So you can test if you're going to receive an experiment A as a response or experiment B. This can be the different variations, and the value that we are going to configure will be available in the string value. So this is where the image URL will appear for the banner image, and this is something that you can return from your API when we will be making that request to the Lambda function. I will be walking you through the steps that we will be doing, so that way you can be sure that you're not missing anything. Override functionality, that is something is used for testing. So if you want to make sure that for a given user, you want to test it before launching this feature. So override, and what that means, I want to display this experiment A for user ID 1 at a time, and then at the same time for the same user, you can display the different experiment by override. So you can click on this button and then put the identifier, like identifier is basically user ID that we're using in here, entity ID. So you can define different identifiers and then have this override. So I don't want this override for the time being. We will come to this later on before launching this. So tags is something that helps you managing and organizing your project and resources in AWS. So for the time being, this is I will be using, like if it is a demo, so let me come back to this image in a second. 1 second, I'm just pausing. So now let's put the value for experiment A. So this is the image 3 that we will be displaying for this experiment, and then image 4 is something that we will be displaying for experiment B. So there are two different images, and we will be testing which image will perform better for a homepage hero banner. So click on add feature. Now we have created the feature. Now it says the code feature. So the code feature is something that we have seen in the sample code. This is where we will just copy paste that code and take it to the Lambda function that we are using. So let me just, again, this is the experiment. Okay, the rules are there. Features. Let's just add it feature one more time. Just want to make sure that we're not missing the code part. So I will show you this. So you can just take this, click on copy, and you have copied this. Now you can type. So in the experiment function, this is just the empty Lambda function, nothing in there. So it's just an empty handler. So in here, it tells you that the code that we will be using, setup credentials, it says you have to import Boto3 is basically the SDK that we are importing. So I will just move the import to the top of the Lambda function in here. Now in the handler, I will be using the API structure as is. Let me just format it, because Python is very different to the other programming languages. It needs very strict formatting because we don't have to write semicolon in there. So 1 second, let me just fix it. Okay, so now we have the evidently client, and the response feature is there. My ID is something that we have to make sure that we're getting from the API, and then before we start using it, we want to print the response as well. Just want to make sure that we're getting a response from this. Print. Let's say should return into an error because I'm just invoking this. I'm not passing any value for the time being because you're not expecting anything. Let me just test it. Okay, it says invalid syntax line 7. Okay, so as you can see, we are getting an error that access denied. What that means that the basic Lambda function that I created, it's not working because it doesn't have the enough permissions. Let's go back to the configurations and the permissions. So this is the default experiment function that I have created, and let's open this one up and then check the permissions that we're using in there. So permissions that we have, you can click on that plus button to expand and check the permissions that we have. So in this one, as you can see, this one only have access to the CloudWatch log group. So you can create a log stream and put log events, nothing else. So let's add the permissions to this one. So we can check if you have the existing permissions. So we have evidently read access and evidently full access. So in the read access, what it does, it tells you that we can list project, get experiment. So this is so in here, we are just trying to identify the permissions that we need. So the error was saying that it's missing the evaluate feature permission. So the permissions is missing. So we are evaluating the feature. So we want to make sure that we have access to the evaluate feature and the batch evaluate feature, because if you want to do the batch evaluation as well, so you can use that option, but for the time being we are using evaluate feature. Then we want to make sure that we have the add specific permissions. So I will just use any in this account, because if you are creating multiple features, you want to make sure that this access is there. Now we can do the next. I will create the policy name CloudWatch evidently. Evaluate feature. So that way we can make sure that this is very clear in terms of the permissions. Now it says it's for CloudWatch evidently, and this is for evaluate feature. So we can make sure this is very descriptive. I can create this, and then it says this one is here. Let's remove this one because we're not using this. Delete access. Let me just remove it and see if we save it and then go back to the Lambda function, if you are able to resolve this. Or in the experiment Lambda function, we have, let's say if you test it now, and we can see the results that we're getting from there. Okay, so now we are seeing that, okay, the response data is here. It says it's working. So it's successfully working, and now in the string value we can see the default experiment A is available to us. So this seems that our connections are working, and then we can start writing the logic to bring in the information that we need from our application. So we want to make it dynamic, so we will be bringing in the information about entity ID, so in this case the user ID. So hence we have to open this up to the API gateway, and the response will be coming in from there. So the response, we have to now pass this response that we are getting from here. So the results, it says that this is the value that we're looking for. So now we have to write a logic to get the string value from the response. Make sense? So let me get this logic. Let me write it. Okay, so let's start changing slightly in terms of the naming conventions. So I'm just making it experiment response, so that way this becomes a bit very clear that this is a response from the experiment evaluate feature. Now from this experiment response, we are going to get the feature string. So this is something that I explained to you, the string value that we're getting from the response, and how we're going to get it. We're going to get this from the response that we're getting, and then from there we are looking for a string value as a key, and under that value we're looking for the string value. Make sense? So now we're looking for this. Alright, so now we have the value. Let's print this feature string and see if this is actually coming through correctly. So I'm just gonna save it and deploy this and test it. So again, testing, it's really simple. I can just name this my event test, and it's private because we don't want to we can save it, so that way it's not really a problem. Let's test it. So in here it says syntax. We're missing some syntax error. Let me just open it up. Okay, now we have the syntax error. That's fixed. It says line number 18. So there is an error. Let me fix that error. 1 second. I'm just going in and fixing the error. So this, okay, I found it, the culprit for the error. So it should be in line with the rest of the code that we have written. So that one space should fix it. Let me test it. So the deployment is successful, as you can see, and let's test it. Let's see what we see now. Okay, so now you can see this is printing it correctly. So now in there, now we have the correct URL that we are expecting from this. So now this URL will become the response that we should be sending instead of this hard-coded value in the data that we are returning. Now I will remove this. Don't want to print something because this will increase the log size when we will be launching in the production. So now we have this. Let me deploy this one more time and then test it. Okay, now it's returning image 3, but if I change that user ID to, let's say, my ID1, deploy and test. Just want to make sure that, okay, image 3. Oh, because we haven't launched the experiment yet, but yes, okay. So this is working, and then we will come back to this Lambda function later on in terms of how to pass the ID and dynamically. So before I do that, let's go back to the CloudWatch evidently part, and then let me just type it in the evidently. Let's open this project. Simple. Okay. Now we have created this part, but as you can see, it was not changing. Even when we are changing the user, it was still showing you the default. So you can see in the default, we are displaying this experiment. So all the traffic is going to experiment A. That's the default one. So if you don't launch anything, the default one, it will directly show experiment A in every situation, and we don't want that, do we? So let's see how we can change it. We go in there, click on the launches. Again, this guide explains you the feature that we will be doing. So now let's focus on the experimentation. So experiments are a mechanism to test variations of an experience, feature, APIs, models, etc. by randomly assigning them to a subset of your user base and comparing their performance based on some pre-identified indicators such as, you know, the add to cart rate or conversion rate, page load times, etc., etc. So you can choose different metrics based on your requirements. So again, similar to how everything else works, you can easily see the experiment, how that will be working. You say it's a step 1, add custom metrics, create experiment, code variation. So we are going to create an experiment first. Is step 1. Let's create an experiment. So this experiment name can be home page banner. Choosing this home page. Okay. it says select traffic. So you have all traffic, 100% split 50-50, custom metrics. Now add to cart. So we are trying to increase the middle of the funnel or add to cart. This can be a conversion rate. It doesn't matter. You can choose whatever works for you. So in this case, we are using user ID. So we have created this, and at the same time, we have to create an event pattern. So event pattern can be something like this. So this information is something that I can use it here, user ID. I'm not using something. I'm just simply using a basic information as this can be units. Units can be clicks. So that way we can make sure that we are trying to increase the clicks, and we can make sure that the clicks are only counted if this event, if this property in the event is present. Otherwise it will not be counted. Similarly, user ID will be counted if the user ID is present. So this is done. The CloudWatch alarm is something if you want to monitor something abnormal that is happening within the experiment. You can try that and track that. The rest is basic. So let me click on this and then create an experiment. Now we have the experiment, but we haven't launched it yet. So we have an option that says whether you want to launch it or not, like this launch that we have started. So you have an option if you want to start this or not, like okay. Now we have created this. Let's see if this Lambda function that we have created earlier will return different responses now. So test. Okay, so previously, this was returning image 3. Now it's returning image 4. So it's giving me a different response now. So this means let's see if we can actually use it in the client side as well. So the place that I will be using, I have created a website. Let me open this up and then show you how we are going to make a request to this. So this Lambda function, I have integrated this with API gateway. This is something that we can discuss how that is done in the follow-up videos. I'm assuming this is something you already know. If you don't know, please leave a comment and I will try to make a video about how to integrate your API gateway from the front end side. So I'm assuming this is already there, and now we're going to make a request from the client side through the API gateway via CloudFront. And let's see how that experiment will work. Sorry, before displaying that, we have to make sure that we're passing the user ID correctly, because this is the part where we need to send the user ID through the API. So let me quickly change the Lambda function for the user ID. So now to set up the parameters to pass the user ID dynamically through the API, we are going to post a user ID in a body to this event. So this should be available to this Lambda function in here. For that to work, let's see, we're gonna get the event body, and then we will be doing a JSON.loads to the event body, and after that we will be looking for the user ID, and user ID will be available from the event body, and I will be passing that as a ID. So we have this user ID, and then when we have this user ID, we will be passing this user ID dynamically for this. So instead of hard coding this my ID, I will be passing a user ID in here. So now we have the entity ID as a user ID. Okay, so now we have the event body, but before testing this from the client side, we want to make sure that this function is working correctly from this Lambda function. So let's quickly deploy this and for testing. So let's quickly take the URL that I have for the CloudFront, and then making a request that basically goes to the function that we have created in there. and that is the name of the Lambda function, experiment function. So the API gateway in this scenario is acting like a proxy. So making a request, you can make a request directly to the REST endpoint provided by the Lambda function, but I don't like following that. So in here you can pass the user ID to whatever the user ID pattern that you're using. I'm using a pattern that says user ID 123 and changing the numerics. I will be showing you the reason why I'm doing this. So you can check the result. It says for user ID 2, it's returning image 3. So from here, when we will be trying a different user ID, it should return a different 50% should be seeing image 3, 50% should be seeing image 4. So let's try image 3, should be different. Okay, if I change it to image 2, so it should be different. Okay, it's random. So image 1, let's see what we have here. Okay, so it's 50-50. So it's randomly allocating the users into 50-50 bucket for the experimentation. So as you can see, we are able to see the experimentation coming through, but we haven't passed the interactions from the website. So that way we have to create another Lambda function which will show you how we are able to pass the metrics from our website. So what that means, we're trying to increase the click rate or add to cart button, add to cart rate. So we have to pass that metrics whenever anyone clicks on add to cart button to the CloudWatch evidently, so that way it can run this experiment and tell you if this is experiment A is winning or experiment B is winning. So let me quickly set that up for you and show you how that will be done. So what we are going to do, as you can see the URL that I was testing in the Postman, I have taken the same URL and I'm putting that in the React project. So this React project, what it's doing, it's making a post request to this URL, and as a response setting this as a background image, and this background image is available as a BG like a background object for this particular style section. So that way we can run this experiment. So the only thing everything else is here is a React project, so you don't have to bother too much about it, but in the end this can be something making a post request in your application. It doesn't matter whether it's mobile app or website, you will be making a post request, and in the post request you will receive a response and then show that response in your website. So now I'm just going to show you how that looks like in the website, and when we are running this I should be able to show you that particular results in the web. So this is the simple web application that I have created. In this application we will So this is my website that we will be displaying. In this website, this is the place where we will be displaying the banner. So as of now, as you can see, this is just a white screen. So I will be displaying that banner in there. Experiment A, different banner, experiment B, different banner. So these two banners will be running as an experiment, and we can test it and see which banner is going to perform really well. So that way we can launch that winning banner to increase our add to cart or conversion rate, whatever metrics we're trying to influence as a result. So that way this allows you to choose the best possible combination and that is going to work well for you. So now let's say as I refreshed it, it's just showing you a different image now, and if we change the user, like the user is something that I have done here. So from there we should be able to change it to, let's say, user ID 3, and then if I click on confirm, so okay, let me try user ID 4. Okay, so as you can see, user ID 3 and 4 is showing a different banner. So it's randomly allocating users into different experiments, and based on that, let's say which banner is going to win for this particular experiment. So as you have seen, we have been showing you two different experiences, and let's see if this is something that will change with different user ID. If I say user ID 5, let's see what happens, and I have a user ID 6. Okay, so it's changing based on the user ID. It's a 50-50, and the same user, the experiment is kind of logged in, so you will not be seeing the different experience when you enter into this experience. That is something that is controlled by the evidently service. So this helps you from avoiding that cross pollution in the experiment. So when you are describing or building an experiment, we don't want to have any unintended consequences. What that means, if the user A is exposed to both experiences, that might influence the decision that he will be doing or she will be doing or they will be doing. We want to make sure that when you enter into this experiment, for the duration of that experiment, you should not be exposed to the other variation. And this is something that is done with the help of the evidently service. Now we have completed the first part. We have created the evidently project, and we have evaluated the features, and we are showing the right feature based on the user ID. Now the next step, we want to make sure that we will be able to choose the winning experience, and for that to happen, we have to send the metrics to the evidently service. So let's take a look at the configuration for this now. I will be starting from scratch. Record Avi. As I mentioned, I will put Python in there, then create function. Everything else is default, so that way we can just create a function. It takes few seconds to create this. So from this step, let's see how we are going to use the evidently in there. So now we have the basic. Let me start writing the code in here. So in this Lambda function, we are basically going to get the evidently client similar to the last time. Then we will be looking for the time of interaction, basically event time. Then metric name, product clicked. I'm hard coding this value. Ideally, you should be sending this through the API. Metric value, because we're counting one click at one time, so the metric value is 1. Then similar to how we have used the user ID in the previous request, we will be passing the user ID, and then in here we will be making a request using that evidently client to evidently. In this client, we have chosen the project simple abtest that we have created before, and in the event, this is a simple structure. That's where we will be passing the type. It's a custom metric. It's not a run, so it's evidently custom event. So this is the event type that we're passing in here. Then timestamp. Then the data is JSON data. In here we are passing the details and the user details, similar to what we have configured when we were doing that evidently project setup. And then the response, I'm printing that response and returning the event process 200. And we want to trigger this event tab from let's deploy this. Similar to the trigger, we want to trigger this through the API gateway. So we will be selecting this API gateway, and this from there we can use an existing API. We have already created this API that we are using, so I will be selecting this as a default stage, and security, I will be using API key. I have already done these configurations, so this is the setup that we will be using. And it takes a minute, and deployment is successfully done. And now we will start recording as soon as we go to the website, and we will start recording the clicks, and we can validate that from the evidently. So let me take you through the evidently screen, and I can show you how this will be working. So in this website, now we have deployed this this code. So as soon as we start adding any of the product to the basket, you can see the product, and then you can do the add to cart. Similarly, you can go to home page, and then I have made a shortcut. So if you click on this will automatically add this product into the basket. So you can start seeing this, and all these clicks will be associated with this user ID. So in this case, user ID 6. So if I am going for user ID, let's say user ID 1 and 3, and then confirm this. So as you can see now, this is showing the image for the user ID 1. So the clicks that I will be doing will be associated with this. As you can see, when I'm adding this product, it's automatically increasing the count in the basket, and you can see in the basket it's there. So this kinds of makes this process a bit easier to test. So you can add different products, and what it will be doing every time you click add to cart, this tracks as one of the click in the evidently. And let's take a look at in the evidently if you're capturing this correctly. So in here, this is the launch configurations that we have done, and this is showing experiment A and experiment B, how many clicks we have. So we are tracking the clicks for these experiments. So the variation assignment, it's showing this variation was assigned these many times to A and B. And let's see if we can see the experiment results and see what it's displaying in there. So we're going to start the experiment now. Sorry, I forgot to start the experiment. So the start of the experiment is simple. You can click on the start experiment. So from this moment onwards, all the results that we're sending will be tracked from here. So I'm going to start the experiment, and then it will show you the status in the live, and the events count will be displayed in here. So if I go back to the website, so that way we can start seeing these events again. So we have 2, 3. Now we can start seeing the clicks in the experiments. In this one, it's showing that event count is 1 click for this for experiment A. Now we can see more values. Let me just do few clicks, and then we can come back to this just to see the numbers and then see how that will look like. So now I'm just going to go and intentionally make the other image win, because we like the other image better. User ID, let's say if we go 2, and then we can check if this changes. No. User ID 4, and let's see. Okay. User ID 5. So this is the image that we like better, because this kind of stands out, and that the text is very clear and it's very pleasing and neutral. So I kind of like that, and I want to make sure that this experiment wins. So I will be recording more clicks for this. 1 second. Okay, so when I'm refreshing this, as you can see, this number is updated, and now we have 5 clicks for experiment B and 1. But at the same time, if you start thinking about the improvement, so you can click on here. This tells you about the confidence interval. This gives you the most likely value for the unknown parameters. Improvement, confidence improvement CI. So you can similarly check the statistical significance for this, and this basically tells you if the results are significant or not, and in the end it will tell you the winner for the results. As of now, it's inconclusive, because it's not enough data to decide if this is going to be a winner. But in the real life scenarios, you can easily see the experiments, and this will be able to tell you if this is a winner or not, and that way you can choose a winner for your project. And these results, you can export them, because they are again available in the CloudWatch log. So you can take this into your analytics platform, and you can analyze your results through that, or you can configure different places. So this is basically a simple demo to show you the experimentation capabilities. You can make it as complex as you want. So as of now, the configurations that we have, this looks very simple because we have 2 variants, but again, you can have multiple project, multiple variants, multiple feature testing within a project. So in here you can have like different features that you can configure based on that. Like if you want to test your homepage, your get to cart, your recommendations, or if you want to test different features that you would like to see in your website and mobile app, you can do that through this here. So that will be all for today, and I would like to end this in here, like just on a good note. Thank you so much for your time today. If you like my content, please do like and share. So when you are liking this video, you're sending a signal to YouTube that this content is something that you find interesting, and YouTube algorithm will find the relevant content for you, which is going to be applicable and reduce your time for search on YouTube. So you can rely more on YouTube recommendations.